I had every intention of doing the countdown, guys, and forgot it. Okay, this is COVID brand. Hey, everybody. My name is Linda Murray Bullard. They call me the business plug. And so this evening, you are getting a treat. Like, go ahead and share it on your page. Go ahead and like the page, the LSMB business page on Facebook. Go ahead and follow me on LinkedIn and go ahead and subscribe on YouTube. The reason I'm telling you to do those three things is because this is going to be interesting and you don't want to miss the Business Plugs Mixer that comes on every Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. We talk about a lot of very interesting things, and you get to actually get up close and personal with a lot of very important people that can help up level your life, up level your business, and up level your brand. This evening, we're going to talk to Sharon Brewster about creating a branding your dreams. Okay, so when we're talking about dreams, we're talking about your personal brand. Like if you want to be an expert in your field, or when we're talking about a business, we're talking about stop being a boring business. Like everybody starts a business and they leave it right there. I started a business and they're so busy working on it, but they don't understand branding. So we're going to break that down for you. I have my expert right here. She's going to help us. And I'm so excited. Before I tell you, let her introduce herself. I want to tell you right now is the time to get your business plan. If you've been thinking about, I need a business plan because I need to get funding, I need to bring on a partner, I need to get in front of investors, a business plan is going to be prerequisite. And so right now we're having a sale on business plans. You can go to getthebusiness.org and schedule an appointment. The appointment is free. There's no charge for the appointment, but you can schedule a discovery call and we can have a conversation about what your needs are. So now that I've done all the preliminaries, let's get to the discussion. Hey, Sharon, how
Hi,
are you?
Mary. I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Thank you for your yes. Thank you for coming and joining us here on the Business Plugs Mixer. And so tell them a little bit about Sharon.
All right, so a little bit about Sharon. So first of all, thank you so much for having me. We have had a dynamic time together since we've met. So I've really been looking forward to being on your show all week long. I've just been on fire waiting to get here. But a little bit about me. I am originally from the Boston area, literally born in the city hospital.
Ah,
Um, so I still live in New England, and my focus is outside of branding. I'm a family person, so I'm a wife, I'm a mother too. We have a dog. My extended family. I care for my mom, who's fiercely independent still, but I do care for her. Um, and I'm a person that I live by my beliefs, and that does kind of you know go into how we run our business in terms of our commitment to clients and how we do our best to conduct business. So with that, I work with businesses and individuals at Brewster Branding, and our office is in Stoughton, and this is where I am. I'm in the office right now. So we work with businesses and individuals to help them either and establish or grow their brand. So
mm,
sometimes we get people that they're just starting out and they're getting the fundamentals together. And now that you have business plans on sale or are readily available that you can work with people, now I know where I can send them, and then they'll be ready when they come back to start the branding piece. And then we have established businesses that are looking to outsource their marketing work, and they have a plan in place. It's about execution, and it's about keeping their social media going. Sometimes I get established businesses, they just want a fresh look. They want somebody who just has a different creative approach. So I'm happy to do that. And I've gotten into instructions and instructing, teaching, and coaching. So that is a lot of fun because there's a lot of good information that I have access to that I love to share. So
you
that's
do.
what I do.
You do love to share. And if you want a sample, like a sample, if you want to see a sample, so she took our meeting, this meeting here, and she did her magic on it. And people were like liking it and sharing it and talking about it. And like she's effective. She is effective. So people were moving it around and sharing it on their pages and tagging people and doing everything to make sure that people who need this information, like if you are in business, regardless of where you are on your business life cycle, but if you're in business or if you have a professional, you're trying to be an expert in your field. And so you want to get known. You want to get known by the companies. You want to get the attention of those who are making the hiring decisions about people in your industry. So you're going to want to lean in. You're going to want to lean into this. Is good. This is going to be good. This is going to be real good. Again, you can see a sample of her work by just looking at the ad that we posted this evening or this morning, and people have been liking it. And I mean, she took everything I already had and then she repurposed it to make it look a whole different way. And so when you think about how you're going to help people get better, Sharon, do they have to have all the things in place?
No, not at all. It's fine. However, people come to us, everybody has a starting point. And it branding, like a lot of other things, we can't wait till we get it together and get it perfect to get going, right? So we go into business, or if we're a nonprofit, we go into a cause because there's a goal, we want to help someone. Or if you write a book and you're ready to launch it, you have something that you want to do. Developing your brand shouldn't slow you down, and it won't slow you down. If anything, it's going to help you bring all your information together and get it so that it's digestible to your audience. So it's going to get you further, faster, right? Farther.
Absolutely.
That's what we want to do. So no, you don't have to have it all together. I've had people literally, I remember being in a meeting and I was sitting next to a gentleman and he owned a gym. And he sketched out an idea on a napkin and he passed it to me in a meeting. Now the meeting is going forward. Like we're like sitting around and we're kind of recessed in our seats, like, just kind of like this. And he just passed me the note, so just like this. So I have like a little glasses cleaner thing. He hands it to me. I'm looking and we're in a meeting and I'm like, I got you. So then we go back, he goes off to, work at his gym and I go off to work in our office. And we ended up having a quick conversation, a quick exchange. And I made the graphic based on the note, right? So we just started off with a napkin. That's happened more than once. But if he ends up watching this, he'll know it's him because that's how we started, doing business together. And other times with people, it may not be a visual. They may not come to me with a visual. They'll come to me and say, this is what I'm thinking. This is what I'm feeling. I have other folks, they have no idea what they want. So we just have a conversation. So they'll feel like, well, did we get anything accomplished? They're like, oh yeah, I know exactly like what's in my head. So now I'm going to present it to you in our next meeting. So a lot of what comes together when people feel like, oh, I don't have anything. Those are the people who often have the most because they tell me, I've been doing this for 20 years, or they have a history that they share. They have stories that they share, because a lot of people get hung up in, I don't have a logo, so I don't have these tools, or my business card needs to be updated. So, or I don't have an active website or online presence, but they're doing all this great work in the community. They have testimonials for days. You have a brand. It's a matter of taking the elements and putting them together and then developing what's called brand assets. So people who want to establish a personal brand, I would encourage them to first think about some adjectives that describe them. That's one of the ways to start. Think about adjectives that describe you. Then look at the other ways that people describe you. So look in your LinkedIn profile, look at the compliments people have given you, and pull a list of adjectives together or common phrases. When you pull that together, and then you have another list that you put together, and don't look at their comments first, like really come up with your own adjectives. Any overlap of similar thought, that's where you start with the voice, the sound, and the tone of your brand, because that's authentic. The third-party testimonial drives home truth and consistency, because we all have a perception about ourselves. We look in the mirror and we feel that we know what we're looking at. Then we go outside and people feel like they know what they're looking at. The only way to really get a consensus on it, and a true consensus, is some of what people are telling you and is some of what you believe to be true about yourself. The key if someone says, well, back up, what is a brand? A brand is what people are saying about you, what they're saying about your business or your organization. And then what we do is we put that in their mind, what they're saying. So Nike says, their slogan is just do it. And they're about performance and excellence and victory. they've put that in our mind that that's what they're about. So our brand, it is our reputation, but it's a reputation that we establish. And
Yeah.
once we establish that reputation, that's where those key adjectives come in. So if someone says that, the adjective for me would be, empathy and creativity. And I say empathy, I know that there's empathy and sympathy, but a lot of people who I've worked closely with would say, she's empathetic. She
Mm-hmm.
gets what I'm going through because she can relate to that particular situation. There's
Yeah.
other people that might say, she gets me on a different level. If I can't relate to the exact thing, I can find something and make a connection. So that's more the sympathy side. But a common adjective I do get is creative and, empathetic, or,
Yeah.
or compassionate. That's another one.
Yeah.
She really cares. You make me feel cared for. And I'm like, well, I hope so. I think I'm a nice person. So I believe, but they're telling me and they're telling other people, like, wow, like you really took the time to make sure that my project was okay. And you went out of your way, or you went above and beyond and reworked something that people said couldn't be done and delivered, on schedule. So that's working on your brand. So when you get those examples from people and you get those quotes and you put them together, now you have something that you can repurpose on your website, your social media platforms. So all the compliments that you get and all the testimonials that you get in all the different environments that it comes in, keep a running list of that. And if you're working for a full-time job and then you are, if you have a full-time employer in addition to what you may be doing, right? Take those compliments there. All of the reviews that you get, the check-ins, all that. Take those compliments, because those adjectives, when I first started my business, I took all my reviews from 2006 all the way up to the day that I left. I actually asked the HR department, can I have all my reviews, please? And they gave it to me. That was before I said I was leaving, but I took all my reviews and I went through all of the positive words, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't leave the job on a bad note. I left because I wanted to be with my kids and be in business full time and enjoy being with my family. I have my husband, my kids, my mom, and my sister, my extended family. But I'm spending sun up to sundown working on somebody else's mission, vision, and that was great because it was good work. But there's also a whole lot of people I can help with the particular skill set that I have. So that's what made me realize I want to be home when my kids get home from school. And I want to help a lot of different people, not just help a lot of people through one vein. So
Right.
when you work on your brand, you want to build up who you are, take all the good information that comes in, and then the information that we don't like, those are the things that we learn from, because the lessons that we don't learn early as we're building our brand, they come back as our brand expands, and then we have to deal with it again and
Because
again.
it keeps coming. And yeah, it keeps coming until you learn the lesson, right? You have to keep
Exactly.
taking the test. And so if you can pull them off and okay, they keep saying this about me, I need to pay attention to that. Because
Right.
you'll see repetition in some of the things that are said that are negative. And really, when you think about it, our growth
Right.
comes from the negative comments, right? It's like them
Absolutely.
telling us unfiltered, these are the things I see that you need to improve on. And so a lot of times people say, well, I don't put I was on some page and it was like, well, don't put anything negative on our website or on Yelp or whatever. And I'm thinking, why? Because that is a grand opportunity to show the world how you deal with negative feedback.
Right. Right.
And so you can turn that whole situation around simply by your response. And that's what you can control. You can't control who puts what. You really can't. But you
Right.
can control your response. And so how you respond to it, always realizing the customer may not always be right, but the customer is always the customer. Always.
Right.
And
Always.
so always the customer. So understanding I think the statistics said that when they have a bad experience, they tell 10 people, at least 10 people, and then those 10 people tell 10 people. You have to think about, okay, how can I turn this around and
Mhm.
use it to be a positive experience, right? And it may be that whatever they dealt with, you give them a free offer,
Right.
or
Right.
that you go out of your way to do something to shake that idea. But let's talk about, so you're a business owner, because people are starting business. We have the great resignation going on in America. Everybody don't quit their job. They're not going to work.
They think they're not going to work. When you start your business, you just starting to work.
They have no idea. They have no idea. And so, you hear about the great resignation where people are actually saying, you know what, I can do this on my own. I really don't need to be working for somebody else. So people who are doing that, I mean, I have nothing against that. I love the fact that people are entrepreneurs. However, starting a business, can we just be honest?
Yeah. So I grew up in a family-owned business when I was very young, on the younger side of my life. My parents, they, before I was born, they started their business. So that's what I came into. I didn't know anything different. So I would just say to anybody starting a business, the reason I went into business for myself full time is because I wanted to be closer to my kids, more available. They were in middle school. So in middle school, at least in our area, the kids, there's nowhere for them to really go after school, like outside of like a club. Mm-hmm. So my motivation for being home was that I wanted to be there for them after school. In elementary school, there's things that they could do, and you can pick them up right after work. But in middle school, there's that 2-hour gap of, and I'm thinking a lot can happen in 2 hours, and I want to be there. And then math, I did the math, and our kids, I felt they were spending more time in the after school program that we did finally, we have them in. They're spending more time in the after school program than what we were able to spend with them in terms of FaceTime at home. Mm-hmm. So I started to feel like you don't get these moments back. You don't get these days back. So there's nothing that is going to be worth it to me. There's no job that can provide to me what I'm missing with the kids. So I would say to people who are in that position, when you leave a job, and it's the great resignation might make people run in one direction, but when you have your business, so whether you started at home or you have an office, whatever industry you're in, some industries you won't be able to do things at home. In other industries, it's easier to start up at home. What it comes down to, and it still ties back into your brand. When you build your brand, you have to think about, what is it you want people to know about you? What product or service do you offer? So you get into, this is my mission. This is what I do. This is my vision. This is how I'm going to go about completing this mission. This is my vision. This is how I'm going to interact with people. And these are the measurable results that they can expect. And then you have these SMART goals. And then you get into having core values, guiding principles, and values. So I break those into 3 because I see companies in hospitals and different places. Some places do it one way, and other places they want guiding principles and core values. So it depends on what works for your business model, and it depends on how much information you have to communicate. As a brand strategist, I recommend that you have anywhere from 3 to 7 core values or words, and don't go for 7 words if you could only come up with a good 3. It's more that it actually ties into your work, into your story. So you pick those words, you give examples of those words in action, whether it's your reason for starting the business, it's an example that you can share. Don't pick a word like empathy. No, not empathy. Sorry. Don't pick a word like equity, and you don't have a story to support it.
Understand what that is. Right. Exactly. Because it can be easy just jumping on somebody else's bandwagon.
Right.
Don't go
words on the wall.
Yeah. You go on the internet and you find this whole list of words, right? Because there's actually a place called corevalues.com where you can get your core values. Like it has all these words, right? So people will go there, and it has like over 400 words, but you go there and you pull out how many ever. But what I'm hearing you say is they need to be relative to you and your business. And so a lot of the 3 things I ask all business owners, what is your mission statement? Do you have one? And I challenge them to put that in 30 words. So because it doesn't have to be on and on and on, right? And then your vision statement, where are you taking the company? Where are you going? What is your vision for the company? We even go to your exit strategy. How will you get out of this?
Right.
Because we like to say we're going to work forever, but we age. And so what happens when your business, when you are done? Are you selling it, or are you passing it on to a relative or someone else, or are you just closing the doors and calling it a day? So making
Right.
those type of decisions, and then thinking about their core values. What are deal breakers? A lot of times I find business owners are having to negotiate pricing
Yep.
because they're talking to people who don't understand their value, or they're
Right.
talking to people who they don't share core values with.
Right. That's a good place when you're starting your brand. If you can get ahead of that early on, where you can you can vet your clients and who you're working with. So when you come up with your brand, and so we talked about your mission, your vision, your values, and now we get into who your target audience is. So now you want to make an avatar or some personas around who's your clientele. Like, what do they look like? Who's your ideal customer? What do they
Absolutely.
need? What's their average income? And then you break them into maybe 3 different avatars. So maybe you have one that's like mid-level income, or maybe it's not even defined by income. It could be defined by other things, the
Absolutely.
location or industry.
Job type. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. So, and then it also could be based on seasons. If you're in the landscaping business and you live in New England, in the wintertime, you probably are running a snow plowing business, or you're doing something else at that time of year.
Absolutely.
So your ideal client, it may be someone that has a certain type of property so that you're employable year round. If not, in the summertime, you have one type of client, and in the wintertime, you have a
Exactly.
totally different type of person.
Exactly.
So I would just say, when you're developing your brand, the avatar for who your clientele is important. It also, we don't want to haggle with clients about prices. And early on, it's hard in the sense that you don't want to turn people away, you don't want to turn business down. You just want people to kind of jump in and support you. But trust me when I say, the first time the red flag of someone not wanting to pay is usually a red flag that you're going to pay in the long run,
I
because
like that.
you're never going to get compensated for what you truly deserve, because one, you're just starting out, so you're reinvesting everything back in your business anyway, and then you have someone that wants to talk you down 20 to 30%, and then you have to pay taxes because you're not a W2 unless you set yourself up as a W2. But remember, you're the one paying you, so it's coming from you. So
That's it.
anytime
That's
anytime you
the
take a hit.
denominator is you.
That's right. That's right. So if you have, $100, and you say, okay, well, I'll go ahead and let the person pay me 70, you're making up that gap for the 30, right? So
Because
now,
your whole process didn't change.
no,
Like you have, and that's the thing. When I'm teaching people how to get their pricing, there's a whole mathematical formula to that. And so anytime they're getting paid less than their regular price, then they have to make that up. You know,
right.
because you're still doing the same amount of work. Your your processes, your procedures do not change.
Nope.
But because you've given this person a break, you just devalue what you have to do. So you have to come up with the difference in the case that you have undercut your own self.
Right. Exactly. 100%. And I want to add support to that point. When you give someone a discount and that person refers 5 people to you, believe me, even though they said they didn't tell them, they told all 5 of those people that you gave them $100 off. Now here you go, or $30 off, where the example started, right? So if they told 5 people, now you're losing $150 plus that first 30. So now you've lost 180 on the 1,000. And then you still have to pay tax. So then you take a third of that away. So now at the end of the day, you might have groceries and a little bit of gas, or gas and a little bit of groceries.
A little bit of gas.
A little bit. You get a quarter tank. So, you really can't afford to be giving it away early on. So when you're
No.
developing your brand, it's okay to develop a brand that's known for excellence, and that, don't worry, this is normal. Our lights, we're energy efficient.
Motion.
We're sustainable. we that's one of our core values. We're sustainable. So we do believe it in, taking care of the earth, ESG and all that. But seriously, what ends up happening is, when we undervalue what we do, and then and if we don't know our own value, right? Because we're talking about personal brands too. If we don't know our own value, that makes it very hard to negotiate the value of our work and our service. So if
Mm.
you personally think that it's okay for you to be last, it's okay to say, when people compliment me, there's times that I say, "Oh, thank you." I'm humbled by that. I'm not humbled in the sense that I don't think I'm good enough. I just want people to know there is a level of humility that I'm not thinking I'm walking on air.
Right, right.
I'm grateful.
Yeah,
I kind of
absolutely.
mix up the adjectives a little bit: grateful, humble, thankful, blessed, whatever. I try to put different words in. Um,
Absolutely.
but you want that to come across, that you appreciate the client, but it doesn't mean that you have to give the store away. You don't have to give away your secret sauce, whatever it is that brings your business together. What you do have to put in place is, your what I want people to think about: their personal character, that you present yourself the same way in different circumstances. When you have a personal brand, if someone meets you in New York, you should be the same person in Chattanooga that they met in New York, and the same
Absolutely.
person they run into in Boston. And then the other thing is, you want to make sure that the values that you say that your business has, that it comes across in your system that you have in place. Then your beliefs, right? So if your values and your beliefs, that affects how we're going to conduct ourselves when things get challenging with clients. And they will get challenging. And
And
it's
they
not
will.
because,
It's a part of business.
yeah, and that's where, you mentioned before, that's where the growth is. Then also think about, when we have our business, we right now especially, we want to think about social responsibility.
Mm.
And when you tie yourself to something socially, now it's bigger than just you making money. It's
Yeah.
about, a percentage may go to somewhere else. So for our business, we decided to support Legacy Girls, which is it's a arm of 100 Black Women Coalition in Decatur, DeKalb, Georgia. Why did I pick that? My family's from that area, right? Like, my dad is from Atlanta, and he
Okay.
was born in 1928. He hasn't been there in a long time. He's passed, long since passed. So I don't live down there, but I want to make a difference in the community that my family, came from.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So how can I do that? And then I think about myself in school, and I think about my passion for young professionals. So to me, the logical link is, I'm active in my alumni group in my area, and I'm a mentor to high school and college students in the summer, and we host internships. I'm making a difference in New England and within my local area. But for lack of a better term, my dad's hometown, I want to do something there. So the work that we do, when we get a certain amount, we will make a donation.
I
So,
love it.
so if somebody from that watches the video, it'll kind of be a spoiler to we are going to do something for them by the close of April. So it's tangible, so that they know we're serious about that investment and commitment. So that's our social tie. So
Right.
how does that relate to our values? Our values, part of our value system, and what I believe in personally, my personal brand has to do with developing young professionals. And that is part of something we put into the business. If I decide not to do Brewster branding, working with young professionals, developing young professionals, that is definitely going to stay with me no matter what direction I go.
I love
Because
that.
that first job out of school, you got the skill and nobody likes you because you're too young and you don't know anything, but you know everything. And it's just kind of,
It's
it's
awesome.
an interesting place to be. So I feel
Absolutely.
like I can kind of help people, get through that, and also work with teenagers in high school who they're doing all the right things, and showing them you are doing all the right things, and here's how to get to where you're trying to get to even faster. So when you are growing your business and growing your brand, that personal tie, that personal connection, what you like to do professionally, what you like to do personally, your business is going to have its own mission, vision, and a way that it runs in systems. But you as an individual, no matter what your business is, if you have a pizza shop, if you have a pet store, and a pet grooming company, your personal brand should be able to help you be a brand evangelist and advocate for either business.
Absolutely.
So, if you change careers, your personal brand might evolve depending on where you're at during that time in your life. But there's certain things that should be consistent. And if it's not consistent, it should be because there's growth, not
Right.
because you're just flip-flopping all over the place. It should always be about that forward thinking and improvement. So when you build your brand, storytelling is important. When I'm doing lessons and instructing people, I always want them to remember something. I tell them the story and say, this is what happened. Boom. And I put the stat in there. So then that helps them remember it. And so if you are wondering, well, what is my story? Your story doesn't have to be tragic, right? And a lot of people think that sells, and it does to an extent. But when I've done creative audits, what doesn't perform well are depressing pictures. You would think that's obvious, but people love dramatic photos when they're creating stuff, but they actually don't perform that well. So unless you're trying to help animals, the sadder the photo is, you're more likely to get people. But then for the most part, when you're dealing with folks, people want something that they can identify with, get excited about, something that they can get behind. You want a story that at the end of the day uplifts people, gets them to support you, gets them to say, I want that person. I feel like that's someone I can trust. That's someone I want to have a conversation with. I'm not saying that we don't tell the part of our story that helps make it compelling and that has proof points and that makes us relatable. If there are challenges that we faced and that is part of our story, yes, we absolutely share it, but you share it from the lens of being healed, being whole, and being renewed wherever you are. Not from woe is me, and I don't know if this
I know, because everybody has a story, right?
Right.
And it's in our stories where we all can relate. Like, somebody may be in the beginning of your story, and then knowing that you made it out helps to help them get through it, right? Exactly. And so a lot of times, storytelling is, I learned that from Paul Brunson. Paul, if you ever see this, I'm giving you a shout out. I learned this from Paul C. Brunson, and he talked about Oprah. And Paul talked about how when Oprah, he talks about still probably, when she had an office in Georgia. And when she went to that town in Georgia, she said, the people were like, okay, big time Oprah coming to our little small community. What is this getting ready to be? Because the people were like, we're just a little hick town down here in Georgia, small Mayberry-ish kind of place where everybody knows everybody. And we really don't need the focus of some big Hollywood person or some big celebrity coming down here and disrupting our lives. And so when she held the town meeting, they asked her, so tell me, what do you know about Georgia and that particular city? And what she said was, every time I hear the name of your city, I think about John F. Kennedy Jr. Because when I grew up, the Kennedys were like the royalty of America. And I remember that John Jr. proposed to his wife in your city.
Oh, wow.
Now, do you think that she got them? Because she got them. Absolutely, she got them. She got them because they could relate to that story, because they all knew that, there was a town, everybody in town knew that he proposed in their city. They probably have a sign somewhere. John Jr. proposed to his wife here,
Right here.
Yeah. And the fact that she went over and above and knew that about them.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't get better than that. You have to know what story to tell and also in what environment for your brand. So that comes down to that avatar piece too. So Oprah already knew typically who was going to be in the room and what was going to work. And that John F. Kennedy example, John F. Kennedy did the same thing, because when you hear his speeches up and down the East Coast, there was one speech in New York, one speech in Boston, a whole other set of speeches when he got down into the southern states.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that was his campaign, and it's speaking to your audience. And that's how he ran his campaign. Now, and that is what you have to do to some extent. You have to speak to who's in the room. If you don't speak to who's in the room and you don't get on the same page, you probably haven't accomplished much of your goal.
And that's the thing, what I try to tell business owners about is you have to speak in the voice of your avatar, right? Mm-hmm. And so when she started talking about John Jr., they knew that whole story, and she was speaking in the language that they understood.
Got you.
And so that's what attracts people. I am all about customer attraction versus customer chasing. Like I said, if anything is chasing, it's not trying to be found. It's not trying to get caught. If you have to chase customers, if you do one and done and don't understand customer journeys and
Right.
how you play a role in creating that journey, that experience, then you're going to forever do one sell and done. You won't see those people anymore. And
Nope.
so you cannot scale a business like that.
No, no, the thing is, it costs us more to acquire a new client
It
than
does.
to retain and have someone come back. And that's why it's so important to do your avatar, because when you have a client, you're not necessarily dealing with them for 3 days or 3 weeks or a month. I have some clients that they've been with me 18 to 20 years. I have some clients I just met a week and a half ago. So and so I don't know who's going to be the client for 18 years, and then I'll end up doing work for their children.
Mm.
No, or 20 years. And then there's other people, they pop up only when they need something, which is fine. I
Yeah.
might do things for their family, certain family events. And, every 2 years I hear from them. But that's the cadence of our relationship is okay,
Yes.
family reunion time. So, this is our theme and we jump in. And then if there's other things that come in, I might deal with them once in a while. But the other part is your brand should evolve. So when these people come to me every 2 years, they might feel like, wow, her business is a little different, but it's not different because it's inconsistent. It's different because it's growing.
It's growing. Absolutely.
When you have a personal brand, you want to think about, did I outgrow that space that I was in before? Right. So there's the
Right.
proverbial box. And so we're going from a lot of times you're going from being an employee, and then you're going into this different mindset where now someone else defined your role. Now you have to define your role. Does it
Mhm.
make sense? What do you want to call yourself?
Well, you
How
want
do
to be
you
known as.
yeah,
Absolutely.
how? Because some people write a great mission statement and it takes up a whole page. And I would just say, like, best practice wise, when you're doing your personal brand, you want something memorable. It doesn't necessarily have to be a tagline, but eventually you do want to get to a tagline. So you want a mission that is very short in terms, like, if you can keep it to one sentence, great. Then you want a then you want a vision statement that tells people how you're going to do it. Make that like one to three sentences. I'll be generous, 2 to 3 sentences. And then you want a combo statement, because there's times that you do need those two things together, and you need them spelled out a little bit more. That's your combo mission vision statement. Never to be used all three at the same time. It's usually the combo by itself, or it's the one and the two, and that's it. But not all three together. That's way too much. And you'll know what environment you need to use it in. You also need a quick elevator pitch. And an elevator pitch doesn't happen overnight. You work on it because it comes from who you are, and do not use words that are difficult to say. Even if you think it makes you sound smart, do not do it. You will trip over yourself every single time, and you'll get frustrated and you'll feel like you're failing. So the main thing is you want to be authentic. So
Yes.
when you're building a personal brand and someone walks up to you, and the example I always use with clients, especially when they're new, think about when you go to a backyard barbecue and someone, you're getting food and you're introducing people, and they say, oh, okay, blah, blah, blah. It's nice to meet you. And this is cousin so-and-so, and this is so-and-so, and we're glad to have you. And then someone always ends up asking, well, what do you do?
What do you do?
What do you do? And so now that you're in business, you can't wait for people to ask you, what do you do? So what exactly are you going to tell them? Mind you, they want to eat. So you only have so much time because they want to eat their food. Or you're standing up getting food together and they're getting food, and then they're on their way. So you only have them for the amount of time that they're putting food on the plate, and then you walk to two different sides of the yard. So that backyard barbecue example is, it's a little bit more casual. It's still a bit respectful because we don't know whose barbecue you're at. We don't know who invited you. We don't know if it's family. We don't know if it's some family and some business people. And we don't know, even if it's family, that the person you're speaking to isn't a potential client or a potential business partner. So you're answering that question succinctly, and you're showing that you're intelligent, and you're showing that you're strong in business, and you're showing that you're down to earth. No one wants all of a sudden a bunch of SAT words, and they don't. That doesn't help people understand what you do, because now we have to also look at how we're using words on our websites and on social media. So if you're looking to be found and you're implementing SEO tools as your business is
Mm.
getting branded, right? So now we got our elements. Now we're looking at our logo. We touched about tagline. Oh, we need images. Oh my goodness. So you have the logo. Now you need a photo shoot. And if you're doing a personal brand, and even if you're only doing a business brand, if you, no matter what, you really have to work on both in tandem because people are going to meet you. So you might as well have yourself together as you get in the business together, right? Because if you're not together, they're not going to trust the business because they're only supporting the business because of their relationship with you. Yeah, exactly. So and then other times there's some cases where people will just get referred to you and they don't really know you, and that's all the more reason to have it together. So I'm always dressed up when I come into the office. Like, I don't know, my neighbors might think I work for a funeral home or that I must work at like a boutique or something, but I'm dressed up all the time because if someone comes into this commercial building and the other business tenants, their clients are looking for someone who does branding and they walk by the door and they knock on the door, they just open it because we're within an office building where it's not uncommon to knock on a door if you're interested in someone else's business or service. So if someone knocks on the door, I can't be in feety pajamas, right? Like a little kid. I can't have on, some workout pants and slides, which I don't dress like that anyway, even at home, but I'm always dressed and ready to go. Even when I'm at home, I'm pretty much dressed and ready to go because if someone says I need to talk to the brand strategist, I got to be on brand if nobody else in the space and there's no one else to look at. And I do have once in a while, we don't get foot traffic because it's a private building, but when someone shows up for somebody else in the building, now they're here and they're looking for some more professional services while it's top of mind, I need to be ready. I can't be figuring it out. I have to be ready. The hair, and and if you're someone that you're saying, well, I don't want to be over the top. I'm not saying that, be eccentric, but be professional everywhere you go as much as you possibly can, because you never know where your next really good client is going to come from. And you might think, well, they shouldn't judge me by appearance, but what else are they going to go by? Right? Because we do that right? We do that with fruit, with food, with vehicles, with everything else, and then so there's that they're looking to figure out what you're capable of and are your standards aligned with theirs. It's not so much that people are picking us apart because they want to be judgmental. They're just trying to figure out, is this somebody who gets me? And that's all you want to do. It's not a fashion thing. It's not a click thing. When you build your brand, that's actually the antithesis of it. It's about you standing alone. That's what your brand is. Because no matter what happens around you, you want a brand that you can be proud of and that you can stand by your word. It's kind of like what I tell my kids: if you can't stand by it, don't say it. And that's what it is with your brand. Like if you can't do it, don't even add that to your list of services. There's a lot of things I can do, but that's not the thing that I want to do all the time. So the list of services we have are things that we're comfortable doing all the time. Are there reach projects we can take on? Absolutely. But I don't want to specialize in reach projects. I want to specialize in what I'm good at and what I know we can get results in, and also what we're having fun doing. Like, I love what I do. The other thing, when people put their brand together, when you develop your logo, keep in mind how your logo is going to be used. Is it going to be used, it will more than likely be used on social media and digital platforms. But if you're going to have a uniform, can it be embroidered well and easily? Is it easy to recognize? Is it easy to read? Does it speak to your target audience? So if your target audience, is of a demographic where, vision might be an issue. And I say that as somebody who has multiple pairs of glasses and trying to adjust to them still, it's not necessarily an age thing. You have to think about what type of audience you have. Is this something that they will easily recognize? Does it look too much like something else? Get a logo that doesn't look like a version of another brand, because one, we don't want to run into any copyright issues. You want to be able to sell your product, and it's okay to be inspired, but you have to still find a way to be, reasonably unique. So I will say that. So if your logo looks like someone else's, that's not ideal. And it should be easy to reproduce in color, black and white, full color. You should have tagline options, all of that. You should have stationery. Do you feel like you need business cards? Whether you feel like it or not, you should still have this. You should still have some, because there's always a person that wants business cards. And if you don't have them, that person feels like you're not a professional. Even if your business model says we're paperless, we don't do that, we just tap each other's phones and we're off. And again, it doesn't come back to age, it comes back to preference. A lot of times people tell me, oh, I don't know this because when I was growing up, we didn't have that. And I'll say, well, when we were all growing up, there were phones, but that doesn't make us linemen, right? So to look at younger generations and say, well, because they have social media, that automatically makes them these digital strategists. It doesn't. It's no different than us having a phone. So I always I always try to remove that barrier out of the room and remove that type of thinking that ageism has no place in how you develop your brand. Because I have clients who are under 30 and they have no more interest in certain aspects of technology than someone who's 55 or over, or 45, or definitely 45 and over. If I put those two types of people together, it's more of a type of a person more so than
right.
It's
And
more,
that's the thing. You're trying to attract a certain type of person.
exactly.
And so what I run into when I'm doing business plans and when I'm doing business period is they want to put them, their favorite color, their favorite this, their favorite that. And I get that. I understand that. However, if when I'm teaching, I've taught Co-Starter, and right now I'm teaching Fast Track by the Kauffman Foundation. It always, lesson one starts off with identifying who you are and what your skill sets are and what your ability to be a business owner is. And then after that, we never talk about you as a business owner again, because everything from lesson 2 to lesson 12 is about the customer. It's about the people you're trying to attract. So when you talk about branding, you're trying to brand something that will attract the customers that you're trying to work with, not about your favorites. My house, anybody that can tell you, my house is teal. I live in inland, totally inland, but my house looks like a beach house. Why? Because I love beach houses. Okay, my house looks that way, but my brand, you can see up in the corner, my brand doesn't look like a beach house.
No.
Because I understand that I am trying to attract the people who need a business plug.
Right.
They're not really interested in the beach.
Right. And that's a good segue to colors and themes. So you want to look at what your client is going to be attracted to, your potential client, your avatar. What are they attracted to? So you're looking at, their interest, their age, the, demographics. You're looking at demographics and psychographics. Psychographics has to do with their thinking. Demographic has to do with how much do they make, where do they live, how old are they, like the statistic data. But the psychographics, you want to know where they're at mentally and emotionally. So I've also worked as a clinician doing mental health work, right? So I've worked in marriage and family therapy. So, and I've also worked on projects that allowed me to learn a lot about brain development from 0 to 6, plus like a real focus on that, plus the work doing psychology and working with clients or yeah, we'll still call them clients. Working with that group, what ends up happening is I think about how people make decisions. So there are marketers that all they focus on is the psychology of how people make choices. So when I make things, that is a large piece of how I come to the solution of certain designs. That's how I look at the customer journey path. Okay, would a person who's in this situation most likely do A or B? And then we continue to do the map from there. Then we start to do the A/B testing and see what happens with people and where do they land. So when we're working with people and we're trying to design for them and what they want, if, like you said, you love teal, but if your avatar, typically that's not going to work for them. We want to look at what colors are out there. So we associate purple with royalty, blue with trust, orange with energy, right? So green, more environmental. What colors make people feel safe? So if you have a brand that you want people to feel safe and comfortable, then you may be, leaning more towards blue. If you want something more whimsical and fun, you're probably in the oranges and the pinks and the yellows and things like that. If you're in a rebel brand, it could still pull in an orange. So when we think of doing our color scheme, we can also think about there's something called a brand archetype. And so there's a whole wheel. And whether you're a whimsical brand like Disney or you're a rebel brand like Harley, does that mean that Disney never uses orange in its design? That's not what it means at all. But it's you use it in a way that you're speaking to the audience. So like Harley's audience, they're an audience that has just a certain level of disposable income, and we know that based on their price. And
Right.
I love that brand, so I'm not picking on that brand. I admire how they've conducted themselves and how they survive challenges that I think businesses now may be able to relate to.
Yeah.
So so they're a good model to look at in terms of having a long-standing brand that speaks to people to the point that you want to be in it, even if you don't ride a
Absolutely.
motorcycle. You just like the clothes,
Hang out with them. Yeah.
exactly. And I don't ride a motorcycle, but I did have one of their jackets, and it was one of the best made jackets I've ever purchased because it has to sustain a lot of wind hitting you. And I thought
Exactly.
I will always have a little motorcycle jacket like this, because it just, I don't ride,
I mean,
but
it's cool. I mean, their products are cool. They're for the cool kids, and
they're for
so
the cool kids, and
yeah,
the functionality is there, right? So they have a reputation of quality.
right.
So that's part of that's part of their rebel brand, is that
Mhm.
there's quality in there. But I would say, so think about your color scheme and think about not making a brand just for you. A lot of times early on in business, we think about, my client is just like me, and I'm looking at people like, oh, okay. And in some cases that might be true, depending on
Right,
what you
right,
do. But then as they start to grow, we start to add on, So that first avatar might look a lot like the founder because that's where they're starting. They
right.
want to target the audience they know best, which is themselves.
Absolutely.
Then, okay, now we can add to the avatar. So we got one down. Now we're gonna add two and three. So, but I would say if you want to grow your business faster, and if you want to develop your personal brand faster, your personal brand, you don't have to develop avatars of yourself, right?
Right.
Because you're the personal brand. But your business brand and how you market yourself, and and how you market your personal brand, that should have an avatar. Because
Yeah.
if I'm saying that I do coaching and I do public speaking, I need to know who I'm speaking to. So even if I think those people have similarities to me, I still need to know who's in the audience so I can give examples that are relative to them. And
Yeah.
that's really what you try to do with the brand, is just make it relatable and digestible to people. So that part is hugely important. So I mean, in terms of branding, like I can go into 5 different levels of branding, but the main thing is know who you are and stick with something long enough to be able to measure the result.
That.
Because what I notice is some people feel like, well, this post didn't get enough attention, and then they change everything, or nobody liked this picture, so this model isn't working, and it's like, well, no, that's not exactly true. I remember giving a presentation, and because of the pandemic and people's behavior patterns, there was a dip in one of our clients' social media, and they were not happy about it. And I said, people are online, but they're not online looking for what you're doing right now, right?
Yes.
So let's just give them a moment, to kind of bounce back, and then let's pivot and make sure we're relative to what they need, and then our posts will draw them back in. So
Absolutely. And that's the thing, because I want to say it was Google. So Google has Think with Google, and one of their statistics said that SEO pays off 3 to 24 months. And most of us want, if we put it up this week, it needs to go viral tomorrow.
nope.
Because if it doesn't go viral tomorrow, then we feel like we're a failure. But in all essence, you have to wait. It's a waiting game, right? And so that's
Right.
why a lot of times when you hire a digital marketer or somebody who's going to brand up your brand, they tell you that it's a whole cycle to it. And so we are in a microwave generation where everybody wants it right now. But with business, everything takes time. That's the one thing I wish I had known before I started business, is about how long it would take for people to, somebody's calling me. Wow, I can't even believe this. So we'll just close that. But some how long it would take for people to see results. Like even in your business model, the first year, you're still figuring it out. You're still figuring out how it's going to flow, who is going to flow with. You're still hopefully narrowing in on your niche. Like you're still trying to make certain that you have all your bells and whistles in place before you become this big product, this big brand. So that's what I am so glad that you brought. Like you talked about color, you talked about avatars, you went back and talked about, the beginning, great information for anyone who's starting a business, great information for anyone who's interested in branding. And guess what? This is like a tip of the iceberg. Like there's so much more to it. And so we put in the description of this video, we put how they can contact you and how they can actually link to you and get more information about branding. Like my son was just telling me, I was telling him you were coming tonight, and he was like, he's a digital marketer.
Okay.
And he was like, oh, Mom, branding. Even Gary V talks about that's it. That's the missing step that we have overlooked, is about branding can help you get there quicker, faster to your goals, simply by, branding in a certain context and talking to professionals who can help you brand your business, brand your dreams, brand your ideas. And so that's what this is about. That's why I was so excited that we decided to do this, is because you're needed. A lot of my followers are small business people. And so they need to understand, like I can give them the basics. We can talk about the very basics, because I always tell my new startups, don't spend a lot of money on logos yet, because the more you learn, you drop the L, then it'll be the more you earn. And you'll be able to get a better brand. This is my third logo since I started my business. And a student named me, you talked about the adjectives, right? Yep. How do we know what our brand should be? One of my students called me the plug, and then go back to Paul Bronson, went with him to Barbados, and in a hot seat session, he named me the business plug back in 2017. And so I've been the business plug since 2017. But it was what people said about me.
Yes, that's what it is. That's what it is. I was working with a client earlier today, and we were working intensely on her bio. And it was once we brought in the third-party testimonials, broke those down. We had the first part of the bio, which is what we were saying internally. This is the public-facing message that we want. When you have a brand, you have internal language that you know about and that your team knows about. Then there's that public-facing, this is what we say. So, it's kind of like when you're growing up, and what happens in this house, this is right. Then you have the public-facing side. But the thing about branding, we're not hiding anything.
Right.
It's still the same thing. There's certain things that's inside baseball, and that's for the team to know. But there's certain things that this is how we come across. We're in formation when we're out there. When we're internal, there's certain language that we use so that we know what we're talking about. Because you don't ever want to give your strategy away, right, as you're putting your brand out there. There's a way that you're executing your secret sauce to draw people in. But when you're talking and it's your team, that's when you're talking about the ingredients and how you put stuff together, and then you best serve your clients. So, when we were wrapping up the last like 2 or 3 sentences, that's when we took the parts of the testimonials and we peppered it in with what we knew we wanted to say, because we know that that's rooted in truth, because it's based on experience. So when you're doing your brand and you write your bio should be something that when you get off the plane, right? If you're invited somewhere and you get on a plane and you go somewhere, you should be the same person that the company has been dealing with on Zoom. You should look the same when you get off the plane. So when you do your brand, like we do brand photo shoots, we do photo shoots here in the office for people. We go on site, we do outdoor shoots, whatever is needed. Now we have the video ability, so we do shoots here and on site as needed. But the thing is, I tell people, if you're going to get a makeup artist, it's the same thing like when we're writing content. Same person needs to get off the plane. They shouldn't have to hold up a sign and you trying to figure out, you see your name and you show up and they're like, wait, that's not the person. And then your tone of your brand and your business should sound like you to some extent. Like your business might have a slightly different tone if it's targeting, an audience. But your personal brand, there should be no confusion when people see the bio and they read it. The same person who shows up to that event, that's, whether you're public speaking, you're doing workshops, or however they've chosen to engage you and you've accepted it, there should be some consistency. You should be able to carry that brand through in person, just like you do online. Because when I work with people and they want me to build their brand and they want it done in 3 days, I'm not jumping in and saying yes, because I don't know who I'm representing. The last thing I want to do is put a brand out there and put a label on someone, and it's grossly inaccurate and it does a disservice to the community and the people that they work with. So when I'm building a brand with someone, we might have because we talk, you could say, we're gonna have a 15-minute meeting and I want my brand, in 3 days or by the end of the week. And I'm thinking, but I don't really know. You haven't proven anything to me. So how am I supposed to go and give you?
Right. And that's what, I talked to a client earlier today and we were talking about business plans. And he said, well, they have these sites out here where you can pay $100 and get a business plan. And I said, well, let me tell you the difference between me and those sites. Those sites have these templates of business plans that they're going to send to you. Now, when you go and talk to an investor and they start asking you questions, you won't have answers because, first of all, that business plan they gave you is not all inclusive and it's not your voice. It's not who you are. I meet with my clients 4 weeks at least, and we once a week for 4 weeks because I have to know how they're thinking, and I have to know how their business model works, because when they're sitting in front of an investor with my business plan, they're able to articulate exactly what's in the plan. They know their numbers. They know how they came to their numbers. They understand how their business functions. They can tell you through operations, through marketing, through distribution channels, through the finances. They can tell you what's going to happen in customer service. They can give you their exit strategy.
Got you.
That's in a business plan. And that's what they pay for. They don't just pay for words on paper, because there's plenty out there that's doing that. Just words on paper, and you don't know anything about it. And the investors look at that and they look at you like you have 3 heads, because they can't, they're like, so this is the type of business this person is doing. I don't want to get involved. And so then they tell you, well, I can't help you. I can't help you. I've had people take my business plans. Like, I do a business plan for one business, and then they have other businesses they're starting. So they look at what I did and they try to mimic that. Right. And it still doesn't work.
No, it takes a deeper dive. And then you have to look at, investors are savvy. This is what they do. So they know the $99 out of a can, because people have already come to them with it, because you've bought something that multiple people have purchased. So when you're developing your brand, don't buy a brand online and put your name on the top and then put your photo in the left corner, because it's readily available. Research shows that people don't pay attention to generic designs. They look polished, but they're so generic that they just wash right past us. Like they just blur. They're a blur in our newsfeed, because when you look at how much scrolling we do, we scroll through yards and yards and yards of data. And we just, if it was like a receipt, it's like the never ending receipt, right? When we're scrolling through all of these different platforms. So the main thing is the authenticity. That's Absolutely. What you're speaking to. Don't just buy something, $99, $27. The prices, and these price points, there's a science to it, and they look at how people respond. So they get you to buy it. But remember, everybody else is buying it. So you don't want to walk into your local bank with something generic, and then you never know, 3 other businesses went to the same place online or a similar place, because you can look at something and tell, you can read the content and know there's not a deep dive. And then everything gives us away. Our body language gives us away. We're stumbling through the words. Yeah. Like, I'm clearly I'm a brand. I have my iPad in front of me and I have my phone in front of me, but I don't need it as a, they're both off. Well, the phone's off, but the iPad screen is black at the moment. I'm not reading, trying to figure out, well, what's branding. Let me tell them. It's already, in me. So when when someone works on a business plan with you, and then they go to the bank, if the bank is like, okay, well, that's good, and then they put the papers aside and they have a conversation with you, that content that they worked with you on for 4 weeks, that should just flow right out of them, right?
And that's exactly what falls apart. That's what falls apart. You know, I've talked to investors that say, girl, they bring them in here. And I know that it's not authentic. I know that they got this offline. They downloaded it for $27. I know that's what this is, you know.
Yeah.
And so if that's what they want, when people, you know, I tell them what the process, I tell them what the price. There's not one business plan client I've ever had that can tell you once they bought the business plan, we were done. Well, Linda, what about this? Well, Linda, I'm getting ready to change. What about you pay for the relationship?
Right.
And it's a journey. It's a customer journey because as you grow, you start learning new things and you want to know how to infuse your business with these different things as you grow. So it's a relationship. I have one client that I've had from 2013. I have written resumes for him, his wife, his daughter, his sister, the boyfriend. Like he always come back to me. He's doing things in Zimbabwe. He always comes back to me because he understands from day one we've had this relationship, and that's 9 years ago. Wow. And he's still, you know, every now and then he'll send me an email, just checking in. How are you doing? This is what I'm working on. I'll get back with you soon so we can talk. Those are the things. Those are the things that businesses should be striving to do. The one and done will not allow you to grow your business the way you want to grow it. And the one and done is not really a business model that's sustainable over a long period of time.
No.
So you have to think about that. You have to think about becoming front of mind when you're a brand. You have to think about the things that branding yourself brings to the table for you as a business.
Right. Right. And you just don't have to put anything out there that you can't deliver on or won't deliver on. That's the thing about branding. It's unique to you. So there's no one should be putting the pressure on you. The only one that we put pressure, the only person that can really put pressure on us is ourselves. Absolutely. And the only people we should be competing against is ourselves. Right. And if you want to start a business or you want to, brand yourself in a certain way, and you feel like, someone in my community is doing this or someone in my network is doing this, so I can't do it. I would challenge you to think, and here's an example. Go to the bread aisle in the grocery store, and there's other people who use this example. This is a relatively common example, so it's not unique to me. If you go in the bread aisle, there's a lot of different brands of bread. So you think about your favorite brand of bread growing up. Think about the brand of bread you might buy now. Think about what other people in your house may want. Think about when you get bread during the holidays. You use different types of bread, So it depends on, whatever's going on. But if my kids have hot dogs, they want hot dog rolls.
Right.
If I wanted a hot dog, I'm just using, the slice of bread. Right. Yeah. But it just depends. So everybody's different. And, and there's culturally, there's different types of bread. And so if it's Thanksgiving season, now you're getting into breadcrumbs, and then there's like a certain type of bread you buy, and the people make the stuff themselves. They're looking for something. So there shouldn't be a time that someone says, I'm never going to open a bread company, a baking company, or
somebody's already doing that.
Because there's always someone who wants a different type of bread. There's always something else that's left to be done. And there's different reasons for that, So I think that I just encourage people that you already have a brand. Now, when you build your brand, it's just a matter of controlling what people are saying about you, right? It's really getting a handle on what's out there, because you have a brand, whether you want to do anything with it or not. So it's to your advantage to take control of it, get ahead of it, and tell people, this is what you think about me in a good way, but I want to take that to the next level, add to it, and use it so that it affects your bottom line. So whether you choose to keep a full-time job, your personal brand is helping you advance your career. If you have a personal brand and you're not developing it, then you're underselling yourself, right? You're not investing in yourself, and you're coasting and you might be doing all right. But then if you have a business, if you're a serial entrepreneur, you really do have to have, especially if you're a serial entrepreneur, you have to have a personal brand so people realize that there's some consistency with you. So you don't seem like you're here, there, and everywhere. It's like, oh, that's part of who they are. They're known to run 5 businesses at once. That's just normal.
That's who they are. Yeah, exactly.
They just have a lot of energy and a lot of ideas, and they're able to execute. And that's okay. When you look at large conglomerate companies, some of them make everything from salad dressing to bleach, right? But a lot of us don't think about that because, you may not want to get salad dressing from the people who make bleach. And they know that. So they don't tell us that, they don't
They
make it talk.
disassociate it, right? They disassociate it when they're doing their branding.
Yeah.
And so
So we
we
need
know them
to,
for the one thing that we want from them, be
right.
it bleach, be it salad dressing. But we
Right.
don't put the two together
No,
because,
no, we don't. We don't
and
put it together.
that's intentional.
Right. They don't want us thinking like, oh, what if they mixed up the formulas? Like these things are probably housed in totally different places and all that. So, we just trust the process because I've never, had salad dressing that tastes like bleach yet. So I'm not worried about it, at this point in life. But when we develop brands, we should be just as savvy. It's okay. We talk about multiple streams of income. That's the way you do it. It's okay to have multiple things, but you should be known for having, you yourself should be consistent, whether you have 5 different companies.
Absolutely.
You're one person, you're not 5 different people. And that's the main thing. So, when you build your brand, consistency, and just know that you're competing against yourself.
Yes.
That's it. There's nobody that can draw people in and deliver on the brand promise the way you can deliver on it. And that I can stand by and I can guarantee. If you have a secret sauce and the way you relate to people, someone else isn't going to come in and take that away. And if they take that client wasn't committed to you anyway,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
So
And that's what I say, when I have had a client that somebody was bringing up her exact business model, right? But I say exact business model in that they had the same, they heard her idea and they thought, I'm going to beat her to it. And she was concerned. Of course you would be. And I had to remind her, they can steal the idea. They can't steal you.
right.
And hers came with a story, like why that became the business she was going into. It had a whole story behind it. They can't steal that.
Right.
And
Right.
so they won't have that to add to the, and she's done very well. She said, well, what should I do? Continue on. And she's done very well. She's done
Nice.
very well because we talked about infusing her vision into her business, right?
Right.
Doing, there's only one you.
Right. So so when we're talking, because this is called branding your dream. We're talking about branding, and we took a deeper dive into the branding. However you see yourself, right? There's a way that we see ourselves in our mind that we're awake, but it's a bit of a dream state, right? Because I don't want people to think we forgot, we put this thing on a flyer and all that. No, we wanted to talk about branding. So we got you in there. But when you think about yourself when you're awake and you're driving and you're walking and you're just, when you're in a moment where you think about, wow, I can see myself speaking to people. I can see myself leading. I can see myself having an office and it's going to look like this and it's going to have this furniture and I'm going to have this team. That's a dream. It's not always when we're asleep. It's just what's being downloaded into us and how we process it. But then you take those steps to brand it. The thing is, you got to step out and try a little bit at a time, just a little bit at a time. And the more you walk in that, is the more the dream that's in your head, that's when that unfolds, right? And so when you build your brand, that's going to help your dream start to come to pass.
Absolutely.
And that's the step. That's why this segment, this episode is called Branding Your Dream. So that's where the thought in my mind, every time I do something and I take a step in the business and it tightens up the brand, it tightens up the process, it gets me closer to seeing what I saw, what I could see in my head years ago. 10 years ago, I could see myself with an office, and the office had 2 very different things. And I thought that is like foolish. Like that's not a sustainable business model at all. Like I don't think anybody would go for that. But now I see how it comes together and how it ties together. And so I would encourage you, if I'm not just going to say dream and dream big. I would say if you're dreaming the way you see things, write it down, because I know that there's another thing that I told you I would unveil, but it's going to jump into that. So I'll stop.
Okay. So let's talk about, because the thing about it, when people first start, you have no proof of concept to that dream. And so it takes getting the proof of concept tight. It takes building that brand tight. It takes building that business type before you get to see it. Like now you say you see what you saw in your head. You see how it comes into play now from
Yep.
back then. But before now, like how your business evolved over time looked very, very different. I'm going to say from what
Yep.
it looked like in your head. When you first start out, you know, Einstein said our imagination is the proof, it's our preview of things to come. And so with that in mind, you have to build toward that. Like
Mhm.
just coming out, oh, this is how it is in my head. Because this is what I get a lot of times too. I get business owners who say, that's not how I dreamed it. I'm gonna build this business thing. I'm gonna build this business that I have in my head. And that's going to be the business that I'm going to put into the world. And I'm like, no, that's not. That's just a preview. That's a preview. It
Yeah,
does
there's a
come
lot
in
of stops.
time.
There's
Yeah.
a lot of stops along the way. So, like, my entrepreneurial journey was working full time. But when I was a kid, remember, it goes
Mm.
back to that family business. My parents had a dry cleaners. I was matching the color on the thread. That was my thing. And then I was putting the hangers together. So there's hangers for pants and hangers for heavier clothes and hangers for shirts. And then there's this paper that you have to put on it. And there was a whole process because this is the late 70s, early 80s. So I'm learning that. And my dad had a lot of like letterhead with logos from companies and things like that. So I'm taking all this in as a kid. And my brother went to Brand Archetype, so he was in art, and he was a painter. He was a painting. His major was painting. I end up with his room, right? Because he's an adult by this point, so he leaves his paints. So I'm exposed to oil paints. I'm exposed to being in a dry cleaner and all the nice clothes that people are dropping off and seeing people, dropping in and out. And then there's other things my family did. So just engaging with them in that way. And then being together all the time because we only worked together and stayed together, and that's it. And it was fine because that was our world, that was our bubble.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
that, fast forward, I get into organizing color. Then I get a
Mm.
job. I'm a sign maker at a grocery store. Nobody hires a sign maker. What happens is I accidentally mess up a sign. I end up making a sign. Someone said, "Who made that sign?" I'm like, "Oh, I did. I messed it up. I just wrote it over again." Yeah, really nice handwriting. I'm like, oh, "Okay, cool. Do you want to make the signs the rest of the day?" Yeah, sure. Okay, I'll make the signs. I was already into art, already winning art competitions. Fast forward 7 years, I worked at a grocery store as a sign maker. They don't hire for that at all. Not at the time that I had that. So, I'm sure I was categorized as something other than the sign girl, but that was my nickname on the side of my little art box, and I went to art school. So I was really just walking this thing out. And I almost went another direction. I was going to go in more of a medical direction because I could handle that type of work. But once I worked in the ER and the hospital smells, I just realized that I'm gonna be more sick than the patients most days. Most days. So I'm like, that's not gonna work
That
out.
would be
So
me. That would be me.
no, I threw out the scrubs. I had my mom get me from the hospital and threw the scrubs in the trash. And then my college mentor, and there's really two. One is like a sister to me. The other one, he's definitely been more of a mentor. And we've stayed connected, but we really reconnected recently. And I credit them. I gave them the founder awards for our business. And
Mhm.
they're the ones, I said if it wasn't for them, I would have been in a hospital just making people sick because I wasn't particularly good at that. And I realized I want to do design. Like I care more about that. So I went through that process, and then, working, it just went from I always ended up in business. Me and my husband, we
Mm.
launched the business, then we had the kids. So I went back to work, which is ironic. Usually you have kids and you stay home, but they're expensive. So I'm like, I'm going to go just work and do something until I can get back to having this business. So that journey that I went on went from having a full-time business, then working full-time for years for someone else, right? And learning, because I mastered my skill while I was working there, came out with more degrees because I kept studying and studying. So now that I'm running this business, I don't have to keep going back to school because I was going to school while I was working in that
Exactly.
environment. So I ended up just, in 2009, someone said, you should really do your own thing. In 2014, I did the paperwork. In 2017, I went full time. And then the office, we had one space, and I learned about what I needed based on that one space. and
Yeah.
I knew what I had to go for. And one friend, she would daydream all the time about white furniture. And I didn't believe that I needed to have white furniture. And if you can look behind me, there's nothing but white furniture in here. But that was she was getting the dream. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I have kids. I don't buy white furniture for obvious reasons. I try to get stuff that the food can blend into,
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
was raising kids. But now they're older, but at home, like I would never ever do that, because I just don't think that work out for us. But when I started putting this space together, it just happened to work out. And I realized it's not that it was coincidental. It was already going to happen. I just had to
Yeah.
really step out and start making moves because I was seeing it in my head. And then my friend she was encouraging me, and I was just like, that's nice that you see it that way. But I'm like, there's no possible way that I'm getting white furniture, and I certainly did. So anyway, I just wanted to make sure I shared the entrepreneurial part and
I
just let
love that. I love that story.
yeah.
So
I'm
let's talk about we just pray.
Oh gosh, yes. So we just pray. What do you want to know? I'll let you lead.
So we just pray is starting at 7:30 a.m. Eastern time on Mondays.
Yes.
And so I've signed up. So
Yeah.
7:30 in the morning, I plan to be on, but it is a Zoom meet, right? A
Yes.
Zoom meetup
It's a
uh,
Zoom meetup.
that is available to anyone, anywhere. And it is an opportunity to bring a spiritual awakeness into your work week.
Yes.
Did I describe it well?
You did. You did a great job. I love, and that comes back to branding. You want to hear what other people say, what they take in, and what they experience, and that helps you, tighten up what you're saying. And that is what we just pray is all about. So the December before the pandemic broke, I just started something within me was just like, you know what, you need to do this. And I didn't know what we just pray was. So I registered about 4 or 5 domains with just combinations of we just pray, we pray this, all of that. And especially during that time, whenever something would happen, I just said, well, girl, we just pray. That would just be me. That was just like my little thing I would say to people, like, we just pray, like it'll work out.
I know
But
it.
we just prayed, it stayed with me. And then I just couldn't get away from it. So I ended up, going ahead and just getting it together. And that, I think it was like December 10th or 6th that year. I ended up sketching everything out. I put the designs together, everything, like it happened in one night. And very quickly, as soon as it hit me, I'm like, what am I supposed to do with We Just Pray? Because I'm not typically known as the most spiritual person within my network. Like, to some people they might be like, oh, you are, but I know people that's really 10 times deeper into it. So I'm like, I don't think anybody's gonna like accept this from me personally, because people associate me more with business. And I think that it's a little unfair to kind of pigeonhole people, that if you're professional that you're not spiritual, and if you're spiritual you can't be professional, when
Mm,
that's not really a good thing. Because
no.
some of us, we are praying and praying and praying when we're working with people, because that's just sometimes that's what happens. But so I sat on it because I didn't know what to do with it, and I didn't know why it was given to me, why this message was given to me. And this was before the pandemic. I didn't know all this stuff was going to happen. So I just had this sense like, you're going to need to use this within that year. But I wasn't comfortable going around telling people. I felt like Noah with the rain, like something's coming, we need to pray.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like, I'm not going to be the one, she's cracking up over there. Like, that's not what she does. But it stayed with me. So I reconnect with my college mentor. And then he called me one morning, and he said, I was thinking about you and I prayed for you last night. I just got a sense that maybe you're overwhelmed or stressed, and I'm thinking like, I think I'm doing all right. But I didn't know the level that our business was going to start to go to, that I was going to need that to fortify me. Right. So we go
Absolutely.
through this, and mind you, We Just Pray is on a back burner. It's actually on a different computer and server and everything. So I'm not really thinking about it in the moment. So we had a 1 hour phone conversation. I had like 4 or 5 pages of notes from what he said. He prayed. He talked to me, gave me keywords, and just really, it was inspiring. For 7 to 10 days, I was on fire. I was productive
Mm.
in a way that, I mean, it was kind of like operating with a different level of octane gas. You're like, man, my car is really, it's really flying. It was kind of like that kind of
Yeah,
feeling.
yeah, yeah.
And I'm thinking, this is good. Like, I don't think we should like not tell other people about this. So then we started working together and working together more. So I'm like, okay, well, now you're on the team. And he's like, I'm available to help for right now. I'm available to support you as you're growing your business right now. What can I do? So I was dropping something off to a client, and it was snowing out. And he said, well, let me just pray for you because you're driving in the snow and, you shouldn't be on the phone. So he did a quick prayer, and I had a good day. And I'm like, this is all right. Like, now I'm getting spoiled. I got like my own personal chaplain and pastor, right? So I'm like, well, God is with me. Like, this is pretty, this is all right. So I said, you know what? We started talking, and that's when I said, this is what happened pre-pandemic. And this came to me. Maybe I should, I mean, I said, I think this is what I need to be doing. I think I need to take this domain, and I think we need to start talking to leaders, business owners, professionals, people who are making decisions, head of households. We need to make this available to them and say, literally, we just pray. You don't have to be on camera. You don't have to put in requests. You don't have to worry about, am I done up or not? It's really in a way, it's done in a way that we're in and out in 20 minutes because I'm busy.
Love it. I love it.
So 7:30 in the morning, we're done by 7:50. So what happens is there's a leadership lesson, there's prayer, and it's not the prayer, because I never liked prayer calls for churches growing up. Like, it's okay if like the pastor watches this or something. I'm honest about it. I've never told anybody I enjoyed it. I don't like all the I don't mind yelling and loudness. I don't. I love a highly spirited, a highly engaged environment. I do. But when I'm getting ready in the morning and I'm starting my day and I'm trying to make decisions, what I need to hear on Sunday and what I need to hear Monday morning do not audibly sound the same. So
Right.
I'm good with the organ blaring Sunday morning, and Sunday morning. Monday morning, I need to hear clear instruction, because I usually have very tough decisions to make between Monday and Tuesday. By
Yeah, yeah,
Wednesday,
yeah.
networking, Thursday and Friday, we're in a different
Mapping
space.
out the plan, like knowing your schedules, and yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So
Monday's intense.
Mondays
Mondays
are
are intense.
intense, and they're big decision days, and you're coming back to whatever happened from over the weekend that the clients
Right.
have emailed you, and you're trying to address any kind of pain points and things like that. So in doing this and speaking to people, there's the concept behind it. The artwork was on a different computer, so then I went to access it and I couldn't access it, and I'm like, what am I going to do? And so it all came back to me with a greater revelation. So I started doing some reading about the plumb line. So when you learn, there's a passage of scripture that deals with the plumb line, and that it's a measuring tool. And so it's not just a measuring tool for punishment, right? It's not necessarily a message of doom, but it's how you build things. So when you use a plumb line, in construction, it's for measurement, to make sure that when you build something, that it's not leaning in a direction that it
That's a
shouldn't.
line. That is a
So
line. I love
so
it.
the logo that was given to me, that I came up with and developed, is really around the plumb line. So it's an icon of a plumb line, and then it just says, we just pray. So the idea is really rooted in, we just pray. There's a leadership lesson that comes with the prayer. So we might pray for a couple of minutes, and it's not like you have to jump in and pray and say something. Like, this is going out anyway. So
Yeah.
you're listening to it to really just settle your mind, to get some direction for the week and get some encouragement for the week, because we're living in a time where people are hurting themselves. Self-harm
Yeah.
is on the increase, right?
Yes.
And so
Yes.
we don't want people to feel isolated, and we want people to know that there's a solution. And we also want to help people. We want to be a source where people can draw strength, right? And
Absolutely.
so on Monday mornings, it helps us set the direction. Initially, it was only going to be the first Monday of the month, because with business leaders, a lot of times you're not going to see the impact, right away. So to me, monthly was good. But then once we got going, I'm like, I think weekly is where we really need to be. And the way we start our day, we started a certain way. So I do prayer and leadership in the morning anyway, because it settles me as a person and it gives me direction for the business. And I don't put it on clients. There's clients that my personal belief never is in the room that impacts a client. But it impacts them because it gives me direction. It helps me, be focused. But it's not something that I'm bringing to them that they need to operate in that way. But on Monday mornings, we pray for we just pray just for a couple of minutes. And then we go into a leadership lesson that's about 10 or 15 minutes. And we're done. Like, and if someone else is leading or giving a message or teaching and it's 7:49, I'm turning the Zoom off at 7:50, because we're business people and we have to work. We're decision makers and we have to be wherever we say we're going to be. And those of us who have 8:00 meetings, because I do have an 8:00 meeting, so we end at 7:50, because we have to honor the time for people. But the idea of the plumb line, we really look at helping people who need to make tough decisions to know that there's a direction for their life, there's a direction for their business, and just helping them just have a place that they can get that direction and get that support.
I know, absolutely. Yeah. I'm looking forward in the morning at 7:30 a.m. Eastern. I am looking forward to joining wejustpray.org. And I'd like to invite other people who are watching this, if you feel so led, to come join us for 20 minutes of inspiration to kick off our work week, so that we can be in the Word. And Monday is scheduling. Monday, the way my calendar is set, so I don't work on Monday or Friday. And so, because I have to transition, I think I told you that. And so Monday's a transitional day for me normally. People who get on my calendar on Mondays are very special people. They are very special people, because that's not something I do.
Right.
Normally I schedule Tuesday through Thursday or Saturday. And then there's a few that fall on Sunday. Very rarely do I schedule for Sunday, but mostly it's Tuesday through Thursday. I work 12 hours, 13, 14, 15-hour days, Tuesday through Thursday. And so my Mondays, though, are my get it together transitional days. And this is going to kick it off. This is going to be a whole new experience. I am so looking forward to it. I'm going to bed on time tonight so that I can get up and be fresh-faced and ready to do it. I mean, I'm excited about it. I really am. So thank you for sharing that with us. So now we're about to close. It's been an hour and 32 minutes. Wow. But we filled it with a lot of great information. If you're watching the replay, let us know that you're here. #replay. Make sure you share this with any business owner that you know, all your business buddies, all the people that you know that's in business. I'd like to say hello to Louise and Mike for joining us again this week. We come on every Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. This is the Business Plugs Mixer. My name is Linda Murray Bullock. They call me the Business Plug. I just plugged you into branding your dreams. You all have a great rest of your week.